Hope you guys are doing wonderfully well. The clouds have just rolled in Boulder City. I'm Heather Abel. I am the director of community outreach. My title changes every couple of weeks. We are talking to a few folks from Drama E. I'm not sure how they all pipe in and become visible. Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so I know we had 3 folks that had RSVP'd. So, there we go. Fantastic.
Hello.
Got you guys. Hi. Hi, everybody. Okay,
Hi.
I have to first say that my dog is also here, and he gets really jealous. So if he pipes in, I apologize.
No worry, love dogs.
All right, so let's quickly go around the room, the Zoom room, and introduce everybody. You are laid out on my screen, so I'm going to start up here with Charles. If you can just kind of introduce yourself, your film, and also the role that you played in the film.
Sure. Hello, my name is Charles Piper. I directed the short film When We Dance.
Hi, I'm Alex Darby. I wrote and directed the short film Seafruit.
That's you guys.
Hi, I'm Angela Godfrey, and I'm co-writer and producer of Forget Me Not.
And I'm Nicholas Goulden, the director and co-writer of Forget Me Not.
Fantastic. So I just finished watching all of your films, so I apologize if I'm a little teary-eyed. Can you guys kind of let me know where you guys are tuning in from, because I did see a lot of international themes there. So Charles, where are you piping in?
I'm piping in. Piper's piping in right now from the edge of Los Feliz in Los Angeles, California.
LA.
So, the heart of the beast. Yes.
Fantastic. Alexander, where are you piping in?
I'm calling in from Shoreditch in East London in the UK.
East London, fabulous.
We're piping in from Berkshire, which is west of London in the UK.
All right, UK in the house. Fantastic. So let me ask you, we actually have the audience piping in and giving us some questions throughout. So as soon as questions pop up, I will shoot them to you. In the meantime, it's just you and me. And so I wanted to ask you a couple of questions directly related to, because it's the elephant in the room, right? So pre-pandemic, pandemic related. So we'll just go around and have everybody's feedback on this. I'm very curious about the timing of the creation of your filming, and then also the submission of your film. So Charles, let's start with you. So pre-pandemic.
Yeah, for the record, regarding pandemic, I'm con. I'm not pro on it at all. Just putting it out there. But yeah, so When We Dance, we shot it. Time is elusive and slippery now, but I want to say we shot it about 2 years ago. So it was pre-pandemic. The writer and producer of this, his name's Kenny Wright. We met a year before that at another film festival where a short of mine was premiering. We became friendly. He liked my short, so he approached me with several of his scripts to possibly direct. I latched onto this one. We got it off the ground, did the fundraiser, had it up and running, and then it started the film festival circuit in 2019, so before the pandemic. It premiered in, I want to say, September 2019 in Film Quest. We were there in person. It got into Texas Festival, and we had a representative there in person. And then the pandemic hit, and then since then it's all been virtual, online, such as this.
I have more questions related to that, but Alexander, if you want to.
Yeah, sure. We shot at the end of January, just before the pandemic. But actually, if you've seen the film, there are a lot of kind of Chinese elements, and a lot of my crew was Chinese and British Chinese, and they had all just lost a lot of work because a lot of them worked on Chinese production shooting in the UK. So everyone had can I swear? What?
I think you can.
Fuck Corona, fucking coronavirus masks and graffiti, because they'd all just lost their work. And because it was really I don't know if you remember, but in January it had really kicked off. Wuhan was in lockdown, and this short is also a proof of concept for a feature that was going to B, might still be a British-Chinese co-production, but that kind of tanked when all the borders shut too. And we were talking to an agent, actually, who was helping us find actors for the feature, who was in Wuhan too, who was like,
Wow.
just stopped messaging us about the film and was like, do you have any K95 masks or know any suppliers? We really need them.
Thank you. Yeah. It had a big impact, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we had a similar story to Charles, really. So our first couple of festivals were just pre-pandemic, and we were able to go in person, which was great. And then pandemic hit, and kind of everything was up in the air. But some of the festivals we've attended have kind of managed to slip through the blockade of pandemic. So we were able to go to Portobello in the UK, and it was just kind of, in the UK, it was, the pandemic was kind of had the summer off, and they decided to hold the festival, and then a week.
There was no coronavirus during the summer here.
And the Portobello Film Festival guys are a fairly free-spirited bunch who were keen to hold it, so we were able to attend that. And some film festivals around the world have been having live audiences. We were in a festival in Siberia called Zero Plus, and they clearly don't believe in coronavirus, so they had packed audiences and things like that, but we weren't able to come. So it's been a mixed bag, but a lot of festivals have either postponed or gone online, mostly, I guess, like you guys. And it's great to see actually how that seems to have blossomed. I mean, here we are doing a Q&A with you guys over in Boulder, when we had a film actually at your festival a few years ago, back in, I think, 2015, called Reality Mine. And I don't think virtual Q&As hadn't been invented yet. So it's amazing how now we're in a kind of new world where we can almost attend, which we perhaps wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah, it's actually turned into a positive in a way.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because that was one of the things that we collectively as a board, we've really thought, okay, well, there's a silver lining here. I mean, obviously we wish you were all here. Yeah. We loved interacting with the filmmakers, and having the filmmakers come into Boulder City is a treat for all of our residents. So, but at the same time, it's an international audience this year, which we, of course, we have a 400-seat theater, so that we wouldn't typically have that. So, so thank you for the COVID-related conversation. Please, the elephant in the room. I mean, we debated, do we actually address it, or so to that point, like I said, I did just watch the film, so I'm very teary-eyed. So obviously the topics here. Grief, loss, hope. So I'll ask the standard question: was the storyline personal? How did you connect with the storyline? And we'll just kind of do the round robin thing again as well. That's you.
Yeah.
You're there.
Right, we're going clockwise. I have to remember. Well, yeah, for When We Dance, so it was definitely personal to Kenny, who wrote it. This is the first time I directed a piece that wasn't also written by me, and I like that as a creative collaboration for a change. But what I liked is, while it was personal to him, it was kind of universal in terms of love and loss and aging, and I think he was surprised that was the script of his I chose, because if you've just seen this by me, you wouldn't know it, but I'm mostly known for very bleak, disturbing psychological horror films with a lot of practical creature puppets. My last short had a crustacean baby, okay? It was nothing like When We Dance. So, but I like the idea of doing something different. And so I like the universality of it, but to make it more personal, I put some of my own youthful awkwardness into it. Initially in the script, in the flashback to the dance party in the 60s, he wasn't accidentally in the Sgt. Pepper outfit. I myself, so I grew up with theater parents. My parents were big in community theater where we grew up on the East Coast here in the US, and they had lots of old costumes, including this vintage 1960s Sgt. Pepper jacket, which every now and again I'd wear to costume parties. My first party I went to in high school, I was a very, perhaps unsurprisingly, socially awkward, weird film kid. So I was dressed in that, and it was awkward. So I put that into the script. I was like, wouldn't it be funny if he thought it was a costume party and it wasn't? So besides the fact he's just an awkward teenager, he's dressed ridiculous. And so that was me putting myself into that. And I remember at first, Kenny, the writer, thought it was maybe a bit too much, a bit over the top. But then when he saw the visual, it came together. So yeah, I liked it because it was universal. But then, yeah, I tried to put a bit more of my own awkwardness into the piece.
So for me, this I suppose that the stories around mental health are very important to me. This is not like an autobiographical one, but was inspired by two things, I guess. One friend I have who was about to do his last exam to enter his degree at university, and then he disappeared from, this was in Oxford, and then he got a train to, I think, Aberdeen, which, like, on a map of the UK, was like the end of the line at the top. And he vanished for 2 weeks, and no one knew anything about him or heard anything about him. So I thought it would be an interesting start for a film to kind of see how you would get out of that space. And then I also have a few British Chinese friends where they're quite sort of similar stories. And actually the cinematographer for this is British Chinese, and he showed the film to his mum after we finished it. And she thought it was hilarious because the storyline happened exactly to his cousin. So it was like, even though it's a sad story, kind of amusingly true to life. So there's a combination of those two things.
Shall
You go, yeah.
Well, I think for us, for Forget Me Not, it was a few different things. One of the key inspirations was the location, or the idea of a location where it's a busy intersection, as you'll know from seeing the film, where it's constantly full of people and places and vehicles and traffic, and yet there's nothing there. Nobody stays there, and so there was, and yet there is there in real life a kind of small homeless population, because they can find places where they can shelter under the flyover and in the nooks and crannies. So we wanted to tell a story that touched on the theme of homelessness, because it is in the UK, and well, not just in the UK, but in our case in the UK, a problem that's very much in the news, and it's considered to be a growing problem. This is pre-pandemic, obviously, and even now it's a completely different ballgame. And the idea of homeless people is, well, it struck us when thinking about the story, that homelessness or homeless people are very much considered part of the furniture of our urban landscape, particularly. And you walk past people and you kind of don't see them. And there was then this sort of juxtaposition and contradiction in a place like a busy intersection under this flyover, where the only people who actually kind of live there are homeless people, and yet they are the ones who we don't see or don't kind of consider to be people who live anywhere, because they're homeless. So this location itself had all these contradictions in it, and the theme then became to kind of explore that. So that was our inspiration to then develop the story from there. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and what would it be like if we actually introduced somebody that actually was invisible?
Well, that's right. Yes, exactly. So that's then, so in the story, there is a young girl who's also there under the flyover in this place. And as an audience, I think you see this young girl, like, what's she doing there? That's not right. Someone needs to help. Why isn't someone helping? Which is, of course, a very natural reaction that you would have as an audience or as a person, you know, if you saw that. But the old homeless person who is there, you don't go, hang on, that's not right. Why isn't somebody helping him? Because our reaction to that is different. So there is that contradiction there and that juxtaposition. So by introducing these two kind of opposite characters in this location of opposite ideas, it was a good opportunity for us then to explore the nature of homelessness and different themes.
So it's fascinating to me because, I'll keep circling back to the pre-pandemic and post-pandemic and where our brains are all, having personal loss in my life pre-pandemic, and then now sympathizing, empathizing, with people who are currently experiencing loss. It's interesting to hear that the film, the premise came from the homelessness, and as a factor where I was thinking of loss and this, the family that had lost a little girl, and that's where I immediately connected. And I watched to the end, and then so now there's a new homeless person, coming into the scene, and I thought, this is about homelessness, not about, so it's really interesting. So just to stay on this theme, if this was pre-pandemic, your concept and the message and how you were hoping that the message would be received, and then now considering where our mindset is today, can you appreciate how it would be received differently, and how does that affect you, or what's your thought process on that?
Well, I think that's really interesting as a story, and just touching on the first point of, you feel like it's a story about the little girl, which it is. And in the writing of the story, there was actually a moment when we flipped it and realized really that the little girl is the protagonist and is driving the story, because it started off where Benedict, the homeless guy, is the protagonist. But it wasn't, as we evolved the story, we realized that it wasn't really a story about him. And that suited the story very well, because although we wanted to explore themes of homelessness, we didn't want it to be a movie about homelessness, if you see what I mean. It is a feature of the environment, but that's not the story.
Right.
But nonetheless, then there is that element in it. And everybody watching the film does take away, I think, different things from it, depending on their own personal experiences and their own personal backgrounds. A couple of people who have watched the film and very much enjoyed it have experienced homeless themselves, and that resonated with them. Other people have perhaps had a family loss or personal losses that resonated more with the dad and the daughter. So yes, the pandemic has shifted the paradigm, because now I think we're all, as an audience, we've got new experiences which change our perception of things, and our priorities have changed. I think so. We do look at everything now is different. It'd be very interesting to hear what Charles and Alexander think about this as well as you, Heather. But I think in history you do get events which change everybody's whole culture's kind of viewpoint, and then everything that happened before is kind of old news, like Vietnam War changed everything, and other events, that kind of shift our viewpoint a lot. And I think the pandemic will do that as well.
Yeah. So Charles, I'll throw it over to you, because I think, that element of loss and connection, and, life is, shifted and altered with the loss of a loved one, and it would be better to be with them in an afterlife. So same question posed to you. I mean, this was pre-pandemic, so how do you,
what's now? Or
well, it shifts how people perceive the film, and how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, it's difficult to say. So I've only seen it with an audience once in 2019, and I'm presumably never going to see it with an audience again, because there's a couple more online fests such as this, and then I'm going to hopefully get it premiered online through one of the websites, and then I'll just live online. So it's weird in a way. It almost feels like I released a fart into the wind, unfortunately. Like we put so much time and effort into this thing, and I'm proud of it. Don't get me wrong, but like it's just like, because it is
a fart.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I pride myself in my farts, but I think I'm proud of this piece, and especially for me, like I said, it's very different from anything I've done before, but it's in this nebulous space where I don't know who's seen it or who will see it, but I'm proud of it, and it almost feels like just like a weird marker in the pre-COVID times and how people respond to it. Maybe people respond to it more so emotionally, because we're all like, look, I haven't seen my parents in person for over a year. Right. So the family connections are tough. I live here in LA. They're still back home in New Jersey. So maybe the emotions this will hit people harder, but it's tough to say. And yeah, I mourn the loss of having a physical fest run with it. With my last short before this, I went to more fests and I traveled more in that like year and a half period than I had in the rest of my whole life put together. So
right.
Yeah.
Alexander, I think the word connection really struck me with your film, in that it really just took that one connection. Did you ever heard, I don't know what that whole, is it a proverb? I don't know if I'm using the right word, where the little boy is walking down the sand and he's throwing the starfish into the sea, and this man comes and he's like, "What are you doing? You can't save them all." And he says, "Well, I at least saved this one." So really, like, it jumped out at me, and that word connection just kept coming back. And so it's such a vital part of humanity, is that connection. Was that on your mind in the?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm really pleased to hear you say all of that. That's absolutely like the main kind of impact I wanted the film to get across, which is, I suppose, like you're saying in the starfish story, not to discount small acts of kindness, because you might really never know how impactful they can be. And I think that's probably even more relevant in the pandemic, where there is so much less contact. I think it can really make an outsized difference if someone is that bit more gracious or kind to you in the time that you do spend. I mean, I know for me, like if I'm going out once a day, if someone's kind of a bit grumpy with me, or the opposite, it can really throw my mood for like the next 3 days, because I'm just not really seeing enough people, which is probably the same for everyone. And so yeah, that's absolutely what I'd like to get across.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're really proud of at the Damn Short Film Festival is connecting with the filmmakers, and so we get a lot of feedback to that point. So we're glad that we could have you here. All right, so let's just get off the pandemic COVID conversation and get into some nitty-gritty filmmaker talk. Everyone's always curious about the road that brought you to filmmaking. It sounds like you guys have all been on it for a while. So just give us a quick synopsis of what brought you to filmmaking. Charles.
So I was obsessed with monsters at a very early age. And my parents, as I mentioned, were weirdo theater people. So they let me watch whatever I wanted. So I saw the first two horror films I saw Pumpkinhead and American Werewolf in London when I was about 6 or 7 years old on VHS. And I loved them. And it thrilled me, the concept that there were adults whose jobs were to make made-up monsters and stories. So I came in from filmmaking from a very monster-heavy point of view. So I started making homemade movies with my parents and friends that were like, murder mysteries or comedy spoofs, just in my living room growing up. And it became more and more official. I got more into it as I got older. So, I was, for better for worse, known as that film kid in high school. And then I went to Emerson College in Boston, studied film specifically, but I got more and more into stop motion animation. So by the time I graduated and moved to LA, I was trying to be a stop motion animator. And this was around 2009. The economy had collapsed. There wasn't a lot of work. And it just, long story short, I had to pivot back to live action to get more work and get out of it. And so now I enjoy doing live action work. Now the pandemic's hit and we can't do it. So I'm working on another stop motion. But that was sort of my arc. It started with seeing horror films way too young, and I went from there.
Horror for the win. Yeah. Alexander?
I would have been terrified if I'd watched An American Werewolf in London at 6. And you're much braver than me. I've always loved watching films from when I was very small. I think maybe what's kind of got me into it a bit more is I did philosophy and Russian at university. I'd always really, really liked Russian literature. I really like how they have, I guess, quite moral stories, but in kind of captivating plots that I've never found that boring. But quite sort of big ideas and really punchy stories. And from there, I went into directing. I did lots of music videos after finishing university, which was really for me like a way to kind of get on lots of shoots. I had a birthday Zoom a while ago, actually, when my friends shamed me by showcasing like one of the worst music videos ever directed, called Slut Drop. So lots of shoots like this where I learned lots of technical things that I am now trying to apply a bit more to create the kind of, I suppose you could say, Russian inspired kind of films. Now I hopefully know my way around the set a bit more.
You're on.
We're on.
I got attracted to filmmaking really not because of making films, but because I really liked the idea of being a part of a team and creating something. So that's what I love about filmmaking, is coming together with a big crew and just all getting together and making something. And I think it's a really wonderful industry to be in.
And my route into the industry as well has been quite a roundabout journey. But before I mention that, Alexander, can I just put in an advanced application, please, to film at some stage an epic of the brothers Karamazov, because the world needs that. And I just
be a great TV series. Yeah.
You're seen.
And if you need a hand, but I like Angela, and unlike I guess Charles and Alexander, my route is not the traditional route. I didn't go to film school. I didn't have a filmy kind of upbringing, but I always loved stories and storytelling. And I wasn't until my mid-20s that I decided that I wanted to find a way to make a living from storytelling, and that the best way, or at least the most powerful way in the sense that you can reach the biggest audience, is through film as opposed to anything else. A lot of my friends are still in theatre or went into theatre who I met at uni, and that's great. But with film, you can reach. Here we are having a podcast with you guys in the States. You know, that's an amazing thing. So I then had to find a way into the industry and learn it. So I moved to London and started doing odd running jobs and worked my way up the assistant director tree as a means of earning a living, because it's very difficult, as I'm sure everyone will be well aware, to just walk in and earn a living from directing. But there is always someone who is willing to pay you 50 quid to drive a van and work for 14 hours for a sandwich and £50. And if you work 70-hour weeks regularly, you can earn enough money to live. So that was great. So that's how I moved up. And then from being in the AD, from having then worked my way up to firsting, had always been directing, and then was able to then shift over into full-time directing. So that's my roundabout way of getting to where I am now.
Lovely. So full disclosure, I have zero filmmaker experience, but obviously I'm a film enthusiast. So I'm curious, the path to short films. I stumbled across the film festival a number of years ago, and it was the short film was a very specific genre. So it was, did your piece start as a short film concept? Did it just end up as a short film concept? And are you on the path of continuing the short film path? Are you just going to go on to features or whatever comes next, or was this an accident? Charles.
So yeah, When We Dance was conceived as a short film when Kenny wrote it. He has since gone on to write a feature-length expansion of it. He's finished, I believe, at least a first draft, which I've read, and he's continuing to tinker with it. In terms of me, I would love never to do another short film again in my life. That's what I said after my last short film before When We Dance. And then it took such a long time getting made and getting into festivals that when Kenny offered me When We Dance, I took it as a fun creative collaboration. Also, if I didn't do it, that would have been another year where I was focused on nothing but fest submissions for an already year or two old film. So it was a way of moving forward, and it was a fun collaborative experience. But yeah, I'm currently producing a large-scale stop-motion animation short right now, which is fun and helps because it's easier to do slowly over time with less people in a pandemic. But in general, no, I want to do features. I've written 6 or 7 feature-length screenplays myself. I actually just finished the new draft of a new feature that I'm very excited about. talk about that later if it comes up. But yeah, from this point on, short films, back in the day, right? We're talking mid-90s, one good solid short film, and wow, you're cream of the crop, top of the world. Now, many short films are being made because more people have access to equipment, and it makes, look, you really got to do a really big, bold short film to get attention. And then even so, it's very difficult. You lose money. You want to create a calling card, but it's harder and harder. So, I feel like I'm perhaps denigrating it too much, but I think the others can speak to this. Like, you make a short film because you have to, but it's not financially sensible.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty, Charles. I think filmmakers are often scared to kind of be that frank at short film festivals, having been to many. But I think even though I don't know, I think that there are loads of amazing short film festivals, and you guys do a great job with the ecosystem. I actually think that side of short films is pretty strong, but getting them funded and making them is really difficult and expensive. I think, as Charles is saying, and I'm sure anyone will tell you. For me, for my short, it actually came about because I had written a feature script, which is about similar themes to mental health. It's about a woman who's on British Chinese woman who works at Samaritans, which, if you don't know, is like a suicide hotline in the UK, and she gets an anonymous call and saves someone's life, but recognizes their voice on the call, and that kind of triggers a journey into her past. But she was British Chinese, and a lot of people basically didn't really believe that I could direct in Mandarin. I do speak some Mandarin, so I basically had to make a short to say, I can direct an actor in Chinese, and you should give me some money for my feature. And then, once, I suppose a bit like Charles, I've made a few shorts before, and it's such a, you have to really love it. But once I kind of got over that hill and decided I'm going to do it, I think it's then very, very enjoyable. There's no one saying it has to be like this. There's no client, and it's quite creative. So I like that side of short films a lot.
Nice.
I don't know if you want to.
Well, I was going to say, we lived in Hammersmith until last year, and we filmed,
which is in London,
which is 5 minutes walk down the road from where we filmed Forget Me Not. And one of the reasons why we chose the wonderful location that it is was that it's actually really convenient. And we thought, let's just make a really quick short film. We'll just bash it out in a couple of days, take 2 days to film. We'll have it, turned around in the edit in, a week or so, and then it'll be done. It took us like 2 years to get it off the ground, developing the script, making it really, really good, and then fundraising. And then we had to wait for it to be Christmas again because it's a Christmas movie. And, it's now 5 years later since we began writing it.
Not far off anyway.
And we really thought it was going to take like a month to make the whole thing. I mean, we're not stupid, but that's what the hope was. But it just really is a labor of love. And if you want to make it good, with no money, we did have money because we fundraised and we had lots of lovely people that gave us lots of money, so thank you, but not enough to kind of sit back and let other people just make it for you. We put in thousands and thousands of hours, and it takes a long time.
I think that's it. In answer to one of your questions, it was conceived and written as a short, and that was always the objective. And I think I'm going to pick up on what Angela said, but one of the challenges I think for us in terms of in the story writing was make a 3-act complete story, but in short form, because short form gives you that freedom to do whatever you like. You don't have to do 3 acts if you don't want to. You don't even really need a story if you don't want to. It can be experimental. It can be whatever. We very much wanted to make it a fully rounded story that finished and worked in the form that it was in. But in terms of moving on and making more, as everybody has said and as Angela has said, it's so time consuming, and very rarely is it budgeted properly. It does happen, and we all most filmmakers need to earn a living at the same time, and it's very unusual for a short film to earn a living. So I think it's a wonderful story form, because here we are in your festival, you've got, I think, 240 films plus
161 films this
okay,
year.
160. Wow, yeah, and
1,000
over
plus submissions.
Wow.
it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. 1,000 plus submissions, so that people are able to make them, and over just a few days of not much more than a long weekend you guys have to get all these films out there. That's amazing. There's so much content, so many different stories. So it's a wonderful thing. But as Alex and Charles have said, once you've made some, you need to work out what's next.
Because you can't make money off of shorts, and so unless you're really rich and you want to make a short all the time, then that's fine. But we need to also we need to make money to survive, and so the next stepping stone is trying to make money off of something like a feature film or a TV series, or that's the next step, really.
And it's sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, just as Charles and Alexander have touched on, there are motives for making them. It's either to prove that you can direct in Mandarin, or it's to to experiment with a certain direction to go in, or to satisfy a lust for monsters, or whatever. And then ideally, it's a calling card as well. So it's a great place, or a great way to stretch your legs in the world of filmmaking and to try different things and
experiment
and get out there. And here we are talking to people and meeting you guys. It's a wonderful thing. Well,
quickly too. So we, in the theater, which is always so fun for our viewers, our guests in the theater, there's 400 seats, and we're always so excited to have filmmakers attending that block. And so we invite them up on stage. If you've experienced that in the past, we invite them up on stage, and then the audience participation. And I think that that's one of the things that is so fascinating, is that to identify a short film, it could be literally anything from 2 minutes to 40 minutes, and and everything in between. And we have so many phenomenal submissions, but it really just opens up a whole new world to these audience members who are used to sitting in a movie theater for 2 hours watching a feature film, and there's so much crammed into 2 to 40 minutes. I mean, it's all the feels, right? So to that point, typically we actually are pressed for time when we're in the theater, because we've got another block coming in. So we'd like to give the audience participation a few minutes to go, but then we have to rush everybody out. So this never happens, but I'm going to give you guys this opportunity, and probably my director of operations is going to shoot me for doing this. But do you guys have a question for each other? Because that never happens in the theater. We just don't have time, right? You guys hang out in the Filmmaker Lounge and chat, and we never get to sit in on that.
Well, I would say, just in general, what are you all developing next right now? Because the pandemic has affected possibly what we can or cannot do. So, like, film industry in and of itself is at it's always been at a weird turning point. But yeah, what comes next for you guys?
Thanks,
it's a very scary question. You guys might want to hear, but yeah, it's frightening. I've got a big kind of more commercial shoot coming up soon, but I did decide I got a bit more into coding when the pandemic hit, because I had other friends just like stopping and doing like van driving with their kit vans because they lost so much work. So, but I've actually quite liked that, and I've decided to like really focus on trying to get this feature film made, and kind of just wait a little bit until that gets easier. Which I actually know I'm curious, maybe the question for you guys. A few other people I know have kind of taken a break from film at this point and found that quite relaxing to have a kind of bit of time off before coming back when the pandemic hopefully quietens down. So I don't know if there are any silver linings.
For sure.
Well, we actually, it's been kind of a good thing for us, because it's been giving us a chance to get on with development of projects which have been, kind of trying to push along. And we've always been trying to find that we tend to develop projects together and write together. And it's finding that time to actually get the diary clear enough to be able to sit down and work on something and push something through. And it's enabled us to work on a number of different projects and pick one to push forward. So the next project we're working on is something called Go Super, which is a pandemic friendly. Well, actually, we're assuming that by the time we get to the point where we can actually make it, it'll be possible to film. Yeah, about a little girl who, in order to save her family's home from being taken away from them, she's trying to find out what to do to save them, and she discovers her grandfather's old treasure map. And decides to rope in, try to go and find it to save the treasure, totally without the knowledge that it's just a game that he made up for his children, and there's no treasure existing. And she tries to get all her family to help, and they all hate each other. So while she's trying to desperately get this thing off the ground, in the hope that it's going to save everyone, they all hate each other, and they know that it's not going to save anyone at all because it doesn't exist. So that's going to be a cheery story.
But it's a happy ending.
Oh, of course it's a happy ending.
Because by doing the treasure hunt, they all realise that they love each other, and it's they live happily ever after.
And the treasure.
You got it. I don't need to make it now.
That is the treasure, you see.
I love it. What about you, Charles? What are you doing next?
So yeah, I'm producing this large-scale stop-motion animation project, and by that I mean it's stop-motion puppets, but the scale is about 1/6. So the sets themselves are each about 2 feet tall, and the puppets are bigger because the main character is a little girl. So we couldn't have the little girl puppet be too tiny. So long story short, we've been developing it since around the summer. So we've been animating it for a couple months now, and it's a solid short. So the animation will go on probably for several more months. Our plan is to have it ready to submit and premiere in the 2022 Film Fest circle, so a year from now. And then beyond that, personally, I'm very excited about this. I just finished a script that I wrote not to get made, but just as sort of a stunt script for attention, to like have something fun and wild. So I wrote a satirical biopic about the trials and tribulations that a young David Fincher had while directing his first feature film, Alien 3. So the screenplay is called Alien versus Fincher, and it is a super over-the-top spoof. Like, the real troubles are so well documented, I thought, why just write about that? Make it ridiculous. So this is a satirical film that spoofs every Alien film, every Fincher film, Citizen Kane, sci-fi films in general. Like, I wrote it as just like to go for the gusto. Let's be real, I wrote it as like blacklist website bait. You know what I mean? So my hope is, by writing something based off an IP, a known property, but twisting it, more people want to read it. Because let's be real, I've written 6 other feature films that are all kind of more personal, inward, psychological horror films, and the industry doesn't give a shit. They don't want that yet. But if I can get attention and then push it onto that, that's the trick. So that's
how do we get a copy?
I can email you the draft just when we're done here. I'd love to get your guys' take on it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys, this has been amazing. I can't tell you how much we appreciate not only your submissions, but just your time and your commitment to the short film industry. We miss having you here in person, but this has been an absolute treat. We do have a lot of other Q&As going on in the next couple of days, so jump in and interact with some other filmmakers. We'll see you Sunday night for our award ceremony that we're going to stream live. And Alexander, I hope you find your silver lining, because you know what? Spending time with you guys, that's been my silver lining. I really appreciate you. Be safe and be well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Bye, this is very nice.
Thanks, guys.
Good to meet you.
Bye.
See you next year, right? We'll see you next year.
Good luck.
All right.
See you next year.
Cheers.